Jack Harper woke up to the sound of something crashing in his backyard. The noise was loud enough to shake the pictures on his wall. He jumped out of bed and looked through his window. A bright light faded in the woods behind his house. Smoke rose from between the trees. What the hell was that? He muttered, grabbing his flashlight and jacket. Jack lived alone in a small house in rural Montana. His nearest neighbor was 3 miles away. He liked the quiet and privacy, especially after leaving his job in the city. The night was cold, and his breath formed small clouds as he walked toward the smoke. The full moon gave enough light for him to find his way through the familiar path. Jack smelled something burning, not like wood or leaves, but like metal and plastic. As he got closer, he saw broken tree branches and disturbed earth. Something had cut a path through his woods. Then he saw it. A small crater, about 15 feet wide. In the center was not a meteor, but something smooth and artificial. It looked like a metal egg, about the size of a small car. The surface was silvery and undamaged despite the crash. "This isn't from around here," Jack whispered. He knew he should probably call someone, the police, the military, or maybe NASA, but curiosity pushed him forward. As Jack approached, a seam appeared in the metal egg. It hadn't been visible before. With a soft hiss, a section of the egg slid open. Jack raised his flashlight, his heart pounding in his chest. Inside was a small figure. It looked almost human, but not quite. The skin was a soft lavender color. The face had 2 large, almond-shaped eyes, a small nose, and a mouth. But there were 2 thin, delicate things growing from the forehead that looked like antennae. They twitched slightly, like they were sensing the air. The creature was curled up, eyes closed. It wore a tight-fitting suit made of some shiny material. Jack guessed it was female, based on her general shape. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall if she stood up. Jack stood frozen, unsure what to do. As he watched, the creature's eyes fluttered open. They were a deep purple with no visible pupils. When she saw Jack, she pressed herself against the far side of the pod, her mouth opening in what looked like fear. Jack raised his hands to show he had no weapons. "It's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." To his complete surprise, the creature spoke. "Stay back, human." Her voice had a musical quality, like she was half singing the words. But it was clearly English. "I am armed." Jack took a step back. "You speak English?" The creature seemed to relax slightly when he moved away. "I speak many Earth languages. We have studied your world for some time." "We? There are more of you?" She looked around, then back at Jack. "I am alone now. My research vessel was attacked. I am the only survivor." Her voice trembled slightly. Jack didn't know if he should believe her, but she looked scared and possibly hurt. "Are you injured?" "I can help." The creature hesitated. She touched something on her wrist, and a small screen appeared in the air. It showed symbols Jack didn't understand. After reading them, she sighed. "My escape pod's communication system is damaged. The emergency beacon is working, but help will not arrive quickly." She looked at Jack with those strange purple eyes. "I require shelter and sustenance until my people can retrieve me." Jack thought about his options. He could call the authorities. They would take her away to some government lab. They might treat her well, or they might not. Or he could help her himself. "You can stay with me," he heard himself say. "My house is just through those trees. No one will bother you there." The creature studied him. "Why would you help me?" Jack shrugged. "Because you need it. I'm Jack, by the way." Jack. "Harper." After a long pause, she replied. "I am Neary, science officer of the Lorani research vessel Stellar Wind." "Nice to meet you, Neary. Can you walk?" Neary slowly emerged from the pod. She moved carefully, as if testing gravity. When she stood, she came up to Jack's shoulder. Her movements were graceful but cautious. "The gravity here is stronger than on my ship," she explained. "Here, let me help you." Jack offered his arm. Neary looked at it suspiciously, but then placed her hand on his forearm. Her touch was warm, and her skin felt smoother than human skin. As they walked slowly toward his house, Jack asked, "Is there anything in your pod you need to bring?" Neary shook her head. The pod will self-seal and disguise itself. Your people will think it is just a fallen meteor if they investigate. Jack's mind was racing with questions. How long have your people been watching Earth? Decades in your time. I am a xenanthropologist. I study alien cultures. Your species is particularly interesting. When they reached Jack's house, Neri paused at the door. Her antennae twitched rapidly. Your dwelling is primitive but adequate, she said. Jack laughed. Thanks, I think. Inside, Neri looked around with obvious curiosity. She examined his books, his laptop, and the photos on his wall. Jack watched her, still not quite believing what was happening. Are you hungry? He asked. I don't know what you eat. My body can process most organic matter. But I should scan your food first to check for toxins. Jack made her a plate with different options, bread, an apple, some cheese, and leftover chicken. Neri used a small device from her belt to scan each item. She tried a small bite of everything, her face showing different expressions with each taste. The sweet fruit is acceptable, she said, taking another bite of apple. The bread also. After eating, Neri's energy seemed to fade. Her antennae drooped slightly. I need to rest, she said. The escape was stressful, and this gravity is tiring. Jack showed her to his spare bedroom. You can sleep here. I'll be across the hall if you need anything. Neri examined the bed cautiously before sitting on it. This will suffice. Jack started to leave, but Neri called out to him. Jack Harper. Why are you not afraid of me? Most humans would fear a being from another world. Jack thought about it. I guess I should be scared. But you seem more afraid of me than I am of you. And honestly, this is the most interesting thing that's ever happened to me. Neri's antennae twitched. Interesting is dangerous. Maybe. Jack smiled. Get some rest. Later that night, Jack was awakened by a sound in his living room. He found Neri sitting on his couch in the dark, looking out the window at the stars. Everything okay? He asked. Neri's voice was quiet. Your moon is beautiful from the surface. I've only seen it from orbit before. Jack sat on the other end of the couch. It is pretty tonight. They sat in silence for a while. Then, to Jack's surprise, Neri moved closer to him on the couch. Your body generates much heat, she explained. The night is cold for me. It's okay, Jack said. I don't mind. As they watched the stars, Neri gradually moved closer until she was leaning against his side. Her antennae occasionally brushed against his arm, feeling like soft feathers. I am not your pet, she said suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. This is just the most defensible position in this dwelling, Jack smiled in the darkness. I never thought you were. But as Neri relaxed against him, her breathing becoming slow, and even as she fell asleep, Jack wondered what he had gotten himself into. An alien was sleeping beside him on his couch. Her people would come for her eventually, and he had no idea what tomorrow would bring. All he knew was that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. Jack woke up with a stiff neck. He had fallen asleep sitting up on the couch. For a moment he thought the previous night had been a dream. Then he noticed the empty space beside him, still warm. Neri was real, and she was somewhere in his house. He found her in the kitchen, examining his coffee maker with great interest. Her purple skin looked brighter in the morning light, and her antennae moved constantly, like they were tasting the air. Good morning, Jack said. Neri turned quickly. This device. It makes a stimulant drink? Jack nodded and started making coffee. Coffee. Most humans drink it in the morning. Want to try some? Neri watched the dark liquid drip into the pot. My scanner shows it contains caffeine. My body can process this. Jack poured 2 cups and added sugar and milk to both. Neri copied his movements exactly, stirring her coffee the same number of times he did. When she took a sip, her large eyes widened and her antennae stood straight up. This sensation is pleasant, she said, taking another sip. The bitterness balanced with sweetness. Interesting. They sat at Jack's small kitchen table. Jack had a million questions but didn't know where to start. Neri spoke first. I must explain my situation more clearly, she said. My research vessel was studying your planet from orbit. We have been observing Earth for over 50 of your years. I was collecting data on human social interactions. Like a space anthropologist? Jack asked, Neri's head tilted. Xenanthropologist is the closest term. Yes, my team and I were attacked by another species called the Krell. They do not want my people, the Lorani, to make contact with humans. Why not? The Krell see humans as potential allies for us. They prefer that Earth remain isolated. Neri's voice became softer. My team members were killed. I escaped in the emergency pod. Jack felt a wave of sympathy. I'm sorry about your friends. Neri's antennae drooped slightly. We are taught to accept the risks of deep space research. But thank you. She straightened her posture. My emergency beacon will signal my people, but the nearest Lorani outpost is 17 of your light years away. It will take time for help to arrive. How long? At minimum, 3 of your months. Perhaps longer. Jack thought about what this meant. So you need to stay hidden for 3 months or more. Neri nodded. If your government discovers me, they will take me away for study. Based on our observations, I would not be treated well. You can stay here, Jack said without hesitation. No one comes out this way. We're pretty isolated. Neri studied him with those large purple eyes. Why would you help me, Jack Harper? What do you gain? Jack shrugged. Not everything has to be about gain. Sometimes people just help each other. Altruism, Neri said. We have observed this in humans, but it is rare between strangers in your culture. Maybe I'm just curious, Jack admitted. I have a lot of questions about you and your people. An exchange then, Neri said. Shelter for information. This is acceptable. Over the next few weeks, Jack and Neri settled into an unusual routine. During the day, Jack would work from home on his computer, writing articles for science magazines. Neri would observe him, ask questions, and explore the house and nearby woods. She was careful never to be seen if vehicles drove past on the distant road. In the evenings, they would talk. Jack learned about the Lorani, a species at least 1,000 years more advanced than humans. They had colonized several star systems but preferred observation to conquest. Neri explained that her people valued knowledge and harmony above all else. We have been watching Earth since your first radio broadcasts, she told him. Your species progresses quickly but chaotically. Is that good or bad? Jack asked. It is simply different. My people advance slowly, with careful planning. Humans leap forward, often without considering consequences. It is fascinating. Jack showed Neri human culture through movies, music, and books. She absorbed everything eagerly, asking endless questions. She was particularly interested in cooking shows, which led to them preparing meals together. Neri discovered she loved sweet potatoes, strawberries, and anything with cinnamon. One night, as they watched a documentary about ocean life, Neri moved closer to Jack on the couch. This had become a pattern. She would start at her end of the couch, but gradually shift closer to him. Your oceans contain remarkable biodiversity, she commented, her shoulder now touching his. Is that why your people are interested in Earth? Jack asked. Neri's antennae twitched thoughtfully. Partly. But mostly we are interested in you, humans. You are the first species we've found that might someday join the galactic community as equals. There are other intelligent species out there, 17 that we know of. Some, like the Krell, are aggressive. Others are peaceful but technologically limited. Humans are ... promising. By the end of the documentary, Neri was leaning fully against Jack's side. Her body was warmer than a human's and lighter. He could feel her subtle movements as she breathed. I am not your pet, she said suddenly, as if reading his thoughts. This is merely for efficient heat distribution. Jack smiled. I never said you were a pet. Your expression suggested fondness, like humans look at their companion animals. Maybe I am fond of you, Jack admitted. Is that so bad? Neri was quiet for a long moment. It is ... unexpected. As the weeks passed, Neri became more comfortable in Jack's home. She helped with small repairs, using her advanced knowledge to improve his solar panels and internet connection. She learned to cook simple meals and developed a passion for gardening. Jack cleared a small hidden spot behind the house where she could grow plants from seeds. She had in her suit's pockets strange, colorful vegetables from her homeworld. One evening, when they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Neri asked, "Do you not have a mate, Jack Harper?" "Most humans your age do." And Jack looked at the fading colors in the sky. "I was engaged once. It didn't work out. I guess I prefer being alone." "Yet you accepted me into your dwelling without hesitation. You're different," Jack said. "You don't want anything from me except shelter. And heat distribution," Neri added with what Jack had come to recognize as her version of humor. Later that night, as a storm rolled in, Neri appeared in Jack's bedroom doorway. Thunder crashed outside and rain lashed against the windows. "The electrical disturbances interfere with my sleep cycle," she explained. "May I rest here?" Jack moved over in his bed. Neri climbed in and curled up beside him, her back against his chest. Her antennae brushed against his chin, feeling like soft feathers. "I am not your pet," she whispered as lightning flashed outside. "I know," Jack said softly. "You're my friend." As Neri's breathing slowed into sleep, Jack realized how much his life had changed in just a few weeks. He had an alien living in his house, sleeping in his bed, and somehow it felt completely natural. He wondered what would happen when her people finally came for her. For the first time, the thought of Neri leaving made him feel empty inside. 2 months had passed since Neri crashed into Jack's life. The seasons were changing, and the Montana woods were painted with the red and gold colors of fall. Jack had grown used to sharing his home with an alien. In fact, he could barely remember what life was like before her. On a crisp October morning, Jack woke to find Neri already up and looking anxious. She stood by the window, her antennae twitching rapidly in a way that Jack had learned meant she was worried. "What's wrong?" he asked. Neri pointed to a small device on her wrist. "I have detected unusual signals. They are not human in origin." Jack felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. "Your people?" Neri shook her head. "No, the signal pattern matches Krell technology. The ones who attacked your ship? They're here?" Jack moved to the window, scanning the tree line as if he might spot alien invaders hiding there. "Not yet, but they are in orbit. They must have followed my emergency beacon." Neri's voice was steady, but her antennae trembled. "Jack, you are in danger now. The Krell will search for me, and they will not care about human life." Jack took a deep breath. "What do we do? I should leave. Go deeper into the wilderness. Draw them away from you." "No way," Jack said firmly. "We stick together. You said your people will be here in about a month, right? We just need to stay hidden until then." Neri's large eyes studied him. "You would risk your life for me?" "That's what friends do," Jack said simply. They spent the day preparing. Neri modified her emergency beacon to send signals from multiple locations, hoping to confuse the Krell. Jack packed essentials, food, water, warm clothes, and his camping gear. They would head into the mountains, where the dense forests and caves would provide better hiding places. As night fell, they loaded Jack's old truck. Just as they were about to leave, bright lights appeared in the sky. Not stars or planes, but something moving in formation. "Krell scout ships," Neri whispered. "They're scanning for Lorani energy signatures." They quickly doused all lights in the house and crouched low in the truck. The strange lights moved slowly across the sky, sweeping the area with invisible beams. Jack held his breath, his hand finding Neri's in the darkness. Her skin was cooler than usual, a sign of stress, she had once explained. "They're using standard search patterns," Neri whispered. "If we move now, while they're focused on the north side, we might slip past them." Jack started the truck but kept the headlights off. He knew these roads well enough to drive by moonlight. They moved slowly, staying under the cover of trees as much as possible. The Krell ships continued their search pattern, moving away from their position. For 3 days, they traveled deeper into the mountains, using back roads and game trails. Jack's truck finally couldn't go any further, so they continued on foot. They found a small cave high on a wooded slope that offered both shelter and a good view of the valley below. "This will serve as an adequate temporary base," Neri said. Examining the cave. The rock composition will help mask my biological signature. They settled in, making the cave as comfortable as possible. Jack built a small fire near the entrance, where the smoke would disperse among the trees. Neri set up small devices around their perimeter, warning systems she had brought from her escape pod. At night, temperatures dropped below freezing. They slept close together for warmth, with Neri often curled against Jack's chest. She no longer bothered to make excuses about heat distribution or optimal resting positions. Instead, she simply nestled into his arms each night, her antennae gently brushing his face as she drifted to sleep. On their fifth night in the cave, one of Neri's warning devices beeped softly. They both woke instantly. Neri checked her wrist device. "Krell life signs," she whispered. 3 of them, moving up the eastern slope. Jack peered out of the cave entrance. In the moonlight, he could make out 3 tall figures moving through the trees. They were at least 7 feet tall, with broad shoulders and what looked like armored suits. They carried long, rifle-like weapons and moved with practiced precision. "They found us?" Jack said, his mouth dry with fear. "Not yet," Neri replied. "They're still searching." "But they're getting closer." Jack grabbed his backpack. "We need to move, now." They quickly gathered their essential supplies and slipped out of the cave, moving carefully along a narrow ridge that circled behind their position. The night was clear and cold, with a full moon casting sharp shadows across the rocky terrain. They had gone about half a mile when a bright light suddenly illuminated them from above. A Krell scout ship hovered overhead, its searchlight fixed directly on them. "Run!" Neri shouted. They sprinted toward a dense stand of pine trees, but before they could reach it, 3 more Krell soldiers appeared, cutting off their escape. They were surrounded. The Krell were even more intimidating up close. Their armor was black with red markings, and their helmets had no visible eye holes, just a smooth, reflective surface. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a deep mechanical voice. "Lorani research officer. Surrender and your human pet will not be harmed." Neri stepped in front of Jack protectively. "He is not my pet and I will not surrender." The Krell raised their weapons. Jack looked around desperately for an escape route but saw none. This was it. They were caught. Suddenly, Neri grabbed Jack's hand and pressed something small and hard into his palm. "When I say now, press this and close your eyes," she whispered. The lead Krell took another step forward. "The human possesses no value to us. Surrender or we will eliminate it." Neri's hand squeezed Jack's. "Now!" she shouted. Jack pressed the small object and shut his eyes tight. Even through his closed eyelids, he saw an intense flash of light and heard the Krell soldiers cry out in pain. Neri pulled him forward, and they ran blindly through the gap between the confused aliens. "What was that?" Jack gasped as they sprinted. "Down the mountainside. Light grenade," Neri panted. "Temporary blindness only. We have minutes at most." They ran as fast as they could over the rough terrain. Behind them, Jack heard angry shouts and the whine of the scout ship's engines. They reached a steep ravine with a fast-flowing river at the bottom. "We have to jump," Neri said. "The water will mask our heat signatures." Jack looked at the churning water below. It was at least a 40-foot drop. "That's crazy." "Trust me," Neri said, her purple eyes locked with his. "I've analyzed the depth and current. We can survive this." From behind them came the sound of Krell soldiers crashing through the underbrush. They were out of time and options. "Together," Jack said, taking Neri's hand. They jumped just as energy weapons fired, the beams sizzling through the air where they had stood a moment before. The fall seemed to last forever. Then came the shocking cold of the water, pulling them down and away from their pursuers. The current was strong, tumbling them downstream. Jack held onto Neri's hand desperately, fighting to keep them both above water. Finally, the river widened and slowed enough for them to swim to the bank. They dragged themselves out, soaking wet and freezing in the night air. Neri collapsed on the riverbank, her breathing labored. Jack noticed a dark stain spreading on her side. "You're hurt," he said, moving closer to examine the wound. Minor damage, Neri insisted, though her voice was weak. One of their energy. Weapons grazed me before we jumped. Jack tore a strip from his shirt and carefully wrapped it around her waist. We need to find shelter and get you warm. Neri looked up at him, her antennae drooping with fatigue. Why do you continue to help me? I have brought you nothing but danger. Jack helped her to her feet. Because I care about you. More than I've cared about anyone in a long time. As they stumbled through the dark woods, searching for a safe place to rest, Neri leaned heavily against Jack's side. Despite her injury and the danger they were in, her antennae gently brushed against his cheek in what he had come to recognize as a gesture of affection. I am not your pet, she whispered weakly. Jack put his arm around her to support her weight. No, he agreed. You're the bravest person I've ever known. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the sky pink and gold. Jack and Neri had found shelter in a small abandoned cabin deep in the woods. It was little more than a hunter's shack with a single room, but it had a roof and walls to keep out. The cold, Jack had managed to start a fire in the rusty wood stove. Neri lay on a dusty cot, her purple skin paler than usual. The wound on her side had stopped bleeding, but she was weak. How are you feeling? Jack asked, placing a damp cloth on her forehead. My body is healing, Neri said. Her voice was soft but steady. Lorani recover faster than humans, but I need time. Jack checked the makeshift bandage. The strange energy weapon had left a burn along Neri's side, about 6 inches long. It didn't look like any wound Jack had ever seen. Is there anything I can do to help? He asked. Neri's antennae twitched weakly. Just keep me warm. My body will do the rest. Jack added more wood to the stove and sat on the floor beside Neri's cot. He took her hand, noticing how it felt both familiar and alien at the same time. Her fingers were longer than human fingers, with an extra joint, but they fit perfectly between his. The Krell will still be searching for us, Neri said after a while. They are very persistent hunters. Let them search, Jack replied. We're miles from where they last saw us. And the rain last night should have washed away our tracks. Neri squeezed his hand. Jack, I need to tell you something important. My people ... They were already on their way when the Krell attacked my ship. They should be arriving soon. And Jack felt a mix of relief and something else, something that felt strangely like disappointment. That's good news, right? They can help us against the Krell. Yes, but there is more. Neri tried to sit up, wincing with the effort. Jack helped her, supporting her back. The Lorani Council has been debating whether to make official contact with Earth. My mission was the final research before that decision. You mean like aliens officially saying hello to humans? That's a big deal, Neri nodded. It would change everything for your species? But now, with the Krell here, the situation is more complicated. The Krell might see any Lorani-human alliance as a threat. Jack thought about this. So your people might decide it's safer to just grab you and leave without making contact. It is possible, Neri admitted. Her large purple eyes looked sad. I was sent to observe, not to interact. By saving me and helping me, you have changed. Things, Jack, he smiled. That's me, always causing trouble. Neri's antennae suddenly stood straight up. Someone is coming. Jack moved to the window and carefully peered out. Through the trees he could see 3 figures approaching. Not the tall, armored Krell, but humans. They wore dark uniforms and carried rifles. Who are they? Neri whispered. I don't know. Military, maybe, or some kind of government agents. Jack watched as the men spread out, moving with practiced precision. But I don't think they're just random hikers. Could the Krell have contacted human authorities, told them about me? Jack shook his head. I doubt it. The Krell don't seem like the type to ask for help. He thought for a moment. Maybe someone reported the lights in the sky or the energy weapons. Either way, we need to move. Neri tried to stand but swayed weakly. Jack caught her before she could fall. You're not strong enough yet, he said. We have no choice, Neri insisted. Jack looked around the small cabin. There was only one door and 2 small windows. The men outside were getting closer. Then he spotted a trapdoor in the floor, half hidden under an old rug. There, he pointed. Maybe it leads to a cellar or something? Jack pulled up the trapdoor, revealing a small space underneath the cabin. It wasn't deep, just enough room for them to hide. He helped Neri down first, then grabbed their few supplies and followed her, pulling the trapdoor shut above them. The space was tight and smelled of damp earth. Jack and Neri pressed close together in the darkness. Above them, they heard the cabin door open and heavy boots on the wooden floor. "Clear," a man's voice called out. "But someone was here recently. The stove is still warm." "Keep looking," another voice ordered. The satellite picked up unusual energy readings in this area. Jack held his breath as the men moved around the cabin. Beside him, Neri was completely still, not even her antennae moving. Minutes passed like hours as the search continued. Finally, one of the men said, "Nothing here. Let's check the next grid section." They listened as the men left the cabin and their footsteps faded into the distance. Jack and Neri waited another 10 minutes before Jack carefully pushed open the trapdoor and helped Neri back into the cabin. "That was close," he whispered. Neri nodded, her expression serious. "Jack, this confirms my fears. Your government is also searching for us now. We are being hunted by both the Krell and your own species." Jack ran a hand through his hair, thinking hard. "We need a plan. A better hiding place, or maybe a way to contact your people directly." "My communicator was damaged in the river," Neri said. "But there might be another way." She reached into a hidden pocket in her suit and pulled out a small crystal, glowing faintly with blue light. "This is a quantum resonator. It can amplify my emergency beacon, but I need something to boost its power." "Like what?" "We're in the middle of nowhere." Neri's antennae twitched thoughtfully. A satellite dish or radio tower would work. "Is there anything like that nearby?" Jack thought about the area. "There's a weather station about 10 miles north of here. It has a big satellite dish. I've hiked past it before." "That could work," Neri said. "If I can access it for just a few minutes, I can send a focus signal directly to any Lorani ships in the solar system." They decided to rest until nightfall, then make their way to the weather station. Neri needed more time to heal, and traveling in darkness would be safer. Jack found some canned food in the cabin's cupboard and heated it on the wood stove. Neri ate a little, though human food was not ideal for her system. As the day passed, they talked quietly. Jack told Neri about his life before meeting her, his job writing for science magazines, his broken engagement, his choice to live alone in the mountains. Neri shared stories of her homeworld, a planet with 2 suns and endless purple oceans. "Will you miss Earth when you go home?" Jack asked, trying to keep his voice casual. Neri was quiet for a long moment. "I will miss parts of it," she finally sobbed. She reached out and touched Jack's face gently, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw. "Some parts very much." As evening approached, Neri's strength began to return. Her wound was healing visibly, the burned skin already forming new, smooth purple tissue. Jack helped her stand and walk around the cabin, her arm around his waist for support. "See, I told you we Lorani heal quickly," she said with pride. "Impressive," Jack admitted. "I'd still be crying in bed if I had a wound like that." When darkness fell, they prepared to leave. Jack found an old backpack in the cabin and packed their supplies. Neri changed her bandage one last time and did some stretching exercises to test her recovering body. "We should go," she said. "The longer we stay in one place, the more likely we are to be found." Outside, the night was clear and cold. Stars filled the sky, brighter than they ever looked in the city. Neri gazed up at them, her antennae moving gently. "My home is out there," she said softly. "Somewhere around one of those points of light." Jack followed her gaze. "It's strange to think about. All those stars, all those possible worlds." Neri turned to him, her purple eyes reflecting the starlight. "Jack, when my people come, you could come with me, see those worlds for yourself?" Jack stared at her, speechless. Before he could respond, a bright light suddenly appeared in the sky above them. Not a star or plane, but something else, something large and moving fast. Lorani or Krell? Jack asked, his heart pounding. Neri's antennae stretched toward the light as if trying to sense its origin. I'm not sure, but we can't stay to find out. They moved quickly into the forest, heading north toward the weather station. Behind them, the light in the sky grew brighter. Jack and Neri moved through the dark forest as quickly as they could. The weather station was still miles away, and the strange light in the sky had disappeared behind the mountains. They couldn't tell if it was following them or not. Do you think it was your people? Jack asked as they paused to rest by a small stream. Neri dipped her hands in the cold water and took a drink. I hope so, but we can't take chances. Her wound was still healing, and Jack could tell she was pushing herself too hard. Her breathing was faster than normal, and her antennae drooped slightly with fatigue. But whenever he suggested resting longer, she insisted they keep moving. The Krell won't give up, she reminded him. And now your people are searching too. The night grew colder as they climbed higher into the mountains. Jack gave Neri his jacket, despite her protests that Lorani could tolerate lower temperatures than humans. You're still injured, he insisted, and I'm used to these mountains. As dawn approached, they finally spotted the weather station. It sat on a bare hilltop surrounded by a chain-link fence. The main building was small, but beside it stood a large satellite dish pointed at the sky. There it is, Jack said. But there might be people inside, whether scientists or technicians. They watched the station from the cover of trees for almost an hour. No lights came on, and they saw no movement. I think it might be automated, Jack said finally. No one seems to be there. We still need to be careful, Neri warned. Your government might have set traps. They approached the fence cautiously. There was a gate with a padlock, but Jack found a place where they could slip through a gap instead. The satellite dish was even bigger up close, at least 20 feet across. This will work perfectly, Neri said, examining the control panel at the base of the dish. I can interface with your technology. She took out the small glowing crystal and pressed it against the panel. The crystal seemed to melt partially, forming a connection with the Earth technology. Neri closed her eyes, her antennae standing straight up as she concentrated. I'm sending the signal, she whispered, directing the dish to transmit on Lorani frequencies. Jack kept watch, scanning the surrounding area for any sign of Krell or human searchers. The sky was lightening with the coming dawn, making them more visible. How long will this take? He asked nervously. Just a few more minutes, Neri replied, her eyes still closed. I'm receiving a response. Jack, a Lorani ship is in orbit. They've picked up my signal. Suddenly, the quiet morning was shattered by the sound of helicopter rotors. Jack looked up to see two black helicopters approaching fast from the east. We've got company, he said. Government types, I'm guessing? Neri opened her eyes. I need 1 more minute to complete the transmission. Make it fast, Jack urged. Those choppers will be here any second. The helicopters circled the weather station, spotlights sweeping the ground. One began to lower, preparing to land in the small clearing beside the building. Done, Neri said, pulling the crystal away from the control panel. My people know exactly where we are now? Great, but we've got a new problem, Jack pointed to the landing helicopter. Men in black uniforms were jumping out, weapons ready. They ran back toward the fence, but it was too late. The men had spotted them and were shouting commands to stop. Jack and Neri found themselves surrounded, bright lights blinding them from all directions. Get down on the ground now. A voice commanded through a loudspeaker. Jack raised his hands. We're not armed. Don't shoot. Neri stood close to him, her body tense. Jack, she whispered. Whatever happens, thank you for everything. Before Jack could respond, the sky above them lit up with a brilliant blue light. The helicopter's spotlights seemed dim in comparison. Everyone looked up as a massive ship appeared, hovering silently over the weather station. It was sleek and silver, with no visible engines or windows. It simply hung in the air like an impossible metal cloud. The government agents froze, their weapons forgotten as they stared at the alien craft. A beam of light shot down from the ship, not like a spotlight but more like a solid column of energy. It touched the ground just a few feet from Jack and Neri. A figure appeared in the light. Tall and slender like Neri, but wearing what looked like armor made of flowing silver material. The newcomer had the same purple skin and antennae, though. They were longer and more elaborate. "Captain Salaith," Neri said, bowing slightly. "I am grateful for your timely arrival." The Lorani captain looked at the humans surrounding them, then back at Neri. "Science Officer Neri, we feared you were lost when your research vessel was destroyed." "This human saved me," Neri said, gesturing to Jack. "He has protected me from the Krell and hidden me from his own kind." Salaith studied Jack with large golden eyes. "Then we owe him our thanks." The government agents were recovering from their shock. One of them, clearly a leader, stepped forward. "I am Special Agent Carter, of the United States government," he announced. "Who are you, and what is your purpose on Earth?" Salaith turned to the agent. "I am Captain Salaith of the Lorani Confederation. We are here to retrieve our lost crew member." His voice was deeper than Neri's, but had the same musical quality. More Lorani appeared in beams of light, forming a protective circle around Neri. And Jack, they carried no visible weapons, but their presence was intimidating enough to keep the human agents at bay. "The Krell are also on your planet," Salaith told Agent Carter. "They are dangerous and consider humans a potential threat. We can help you deal with them if you wish." This news caused a stir among the agents. They conferred quickly among themselves, then Carter spoke again. "We need to contact our superiors." "This is beyond my authority." "Understood," Salaith replied. "But we will take our people with us now," Agent Carter frowned. "People? You mean your alien scout?" "And this human," Salaith said, gesturing to Jack. "He has been claimed as a friend of the Lorani. We owe him protection." Jack looked at Neri in surprise. She moved closer to him, taking his hand. "Is this true?" Carter asked Jack. "You want to go with them?" Jack thought about his life before Neri, his quiet house in the woods. His lonely days writing about science he could only imagine. Then he looked at Neri, with her purple skin and expressive antennae, who had changed everything. "Yes," he said. "I want to go?" Neri's antennae fluttered with what Jack now recognized as happiness. "He will be treated with honor," she assured the human agents. "And he will help us understand your people better." Agent Carter looked like he wanted to object, but the presence of the Lorani ship overhead made argument seem pointless. "That's your choice, I suppose," he said to Jack. Salaith raised his hand, and the light around them grew brighter. Jack felt a strange weightlessness, as if gravity was loosening its hold. The weather station and the human agents began to fade from view as they rose toward the ship. Jack looked down at the earth, the mountains and forests where he had lived, growing smaller by the second. It should have been frightening, but with Neri beside him, it felt right. Inside the ship, everything was smooth and bright, with walls that seemed to glow from within. Other Lorani greeted Neri warmly. Their antennae touching in what Jack had learned was their version of an embrace. Later, in a quiet room with a window that showed the earth hanging like a blue jewel against the blackness of space, Neri came to sit beside Jack. "Are you afraid?" she asked. Jack shook his head. Amazed, overwhelmed, but not afraid. Neri curled up beside him, her head resting on his lap as naturally as if she had always belonged there. Her antennae brushed gently against his hand. "You know," Jack said with a smile, "for someone who insists she's not a pet, you sure like being petted." Neri looked up at him, her purple eyes sparkling. "I am not your pet, Jack Harper. I am your guide to the stars now." As Earth grew smaller in the window and the ship prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Jack stroked Neri's antennae gently. She made a soft humming sound that he recognized as her version of contentment. "I am not your pet," she whispered. "One last time. I am something much better." "I am your home among the stars?" Jack smiled. Somehow, in the strangest way possible, he had found where he belonged.